I'm Steve Logan. I'm a Welsh songwriter and rock musician. I'm going to talk today about the question, are songs serious? You might wonder why that matters. It matters, I think, because the concern of anybody that writes songs or is involved in any kind of art is how to go on doing it, how to keep going. And if you have doubts about the value of the thing that you're doing, you may find it difficult to persevere. Well, clearly, you can be in the music business for lots of reasons. Making money, getting famous, being adored. You might write songs like you were working on a factory production line, or because you've got some driving political purpose, or because there's something that you desperately need to express. In an era when global pop is dominated by songs written by committee, and when it seems likely that AI bands like Velvet Sundown will develop into a whole money-making genre, then it can be hard for musicians who want to write songs that have what they think of as some genuine intrinsic value to keep going. Well, there are times when all art can seem trivial. When it's going badly, when you can't get on, when tragedy drops a bomb into your personal life. Well, I suppose that what we're looking for at reasonably good times is the potential in songwriting for doing something that's beyond mere entertainment. AI ambient music can entertain you. We've already had AI-generated hologram acts for ABBA and Frank Sinatra, for instance, and those will while away a few hours. But is music more than that? In 1946, 1 year after the Second World War ended, George Orwell wrote a fabulous essay called Why I Write. I think that he was writing that partly to reassure himself. He listed, with all his characteristic penchant for facing hard truths squarely, 4 reasons. 4 reasons why George Orwell said he wrote. First, sheer egoism. The desire to be talked about, the desire for people to think you're clever, to maybe get one over on your enemies. We might deny that this is a motive, but it clearly is one. If it's too pronounced, too obvious, these days we'd be apt to call it narcissism. But everyone's narcissistic to some degree, and those in the arts may be a tad more obviously than most. Second, in Orwell's reasons, is aesthetic enthusiasm. This is the desire to make something beautiful. The way that you choose to arrange words in a sentence or in a line will be part of that. And in music, there are many little decisions that you're making when you write a song, which have to do with your sense of what feels right. And that will ultimately be linked to beauty. And also, under this heading, you could probably include the desire to communicate something that you feel to be good or valuable. Third, and this is the reason that Orwell writes least about, there's historical impulse. It's the desire to establish what happened, to provide evidence for the future about something. It's not entirely irrelevant to music, of course, because protest songs will give people in the future an idea of what it was that people in the past were concerned about or felt grievances about. And all the best songs being written now will in the future be looked at for evidence of what it was like to be alive now. The fourth of Orwell's 4 reasons to explain why he wrote is particularly relevant to music, and this is political purpose. Got to understand that in the broadest sense. I'm not here talking about party politics, although that can be included under this heading. Many songwriters say that they want to change the world in however small a way, or that they want to express a vision of what's possible. On Neil Young's latest album, Talking to the Trees, there are several songs critical of the current US administration, and others which are strongly pro-ecology. The Manic Street Preachers have political purpose written in bold across their whole catalogue. You've only got to think of songs like Designed for Life, Ready for Drowning, and If You Tolerate This, Then Your Children Will Be Next. What of all these songs, not just by those 2 artists, but any songs that seem in that way to have a political purpose, what have they got in common? The Victorian literary critic Matthew Arnold said that art didn't last unless it had what he called high seriousness. This isn't a matter of being solemn or earnest, though sometimes it's right to be both. Arnold's idea applied to music would seem to be that unless a song touches us at the level of our deepest concerns, one of which is indeed to be happy, then it won't last. It isn't that songs, to be serious, have to be miserable, although the number of songs which are simply joyous is perhaps more limited than the number which are only joyful in a way. Take a 1985 song by my friend Kimberley Rew, which almost everybody must know, Walking on Sunshine. Clearly there's nothing overtly sinister about this song, and I don't want to suggest at all that there is. There are no side shafts of pain, no hints of adversity overcome. The refrain, which has passed into European consciousness, is all about sunshine. And yet, for all the joyously upbeat exuberance in the bass riff and in Katrina's vocal delivery, there are 3 things which hint at a universally felt fragility. One is in the lyric. It starts, I used to think maybe you loved me, which before we get to now baby I'm sure, could go quite another way, such as, but I don't anymore. When this line, slightly altered, comes back later in the song, you might be waiting for a downturn. It doesn't come, but just momentarily, that possibility is there. A second hint of fragility is the whole notion of walking on sunshine. Sunshine, after all, is temporary. It's joyous because you're doing the impossible, but it also has a suggestion of stepping out into thin air about it. And third, there are the hair in the wind, soft top down, heaven come to earth at last chants of I feel alive, I feel the love that's really real, which of course hints at the opposite kind of love, having been experienced previously. So for all its apparent simplicity, I'd say this is a deep song, if you want to dive into its undertow. But of course I agree that most obviously it's a hallelujah of love. With Walking on Sunshine, you can choose to ignore the subtext of the lyrics in part because of its sheer musical energy and the way that it's sung. We know that choruses can be problematic when taken out of context. The Manic Street Preachers' 1998 song, You Stole the Sun from My Heart, is in a sense the opposite of Walking on Sunshine, since the chorus is insisting on something negative. Yet the band have said in interviews that they've heard of people choosing to play it at their weddings. The lyrics outside the chorus describe a state, body anxiety, moral self-scrutiny, which love has to survive in spite of. I love you all the same. The first verse is, drinking water to stay thin, or is it to purify? I love you all the same. In the next verse, R.S. Thomas's collection, No Truce with the Furies, which is about the rage at injustice you can never quell, is alluded to. And again, love exists in spite of an internal counter-spirit. Second verse is, but there's no real truce with my fury. You don't have to believe me. I love you all the same. Now the chorus could be a resounding affirmation of this love, but instead, despite the anthemic swell of guitars and programmed drums, it points to the reason for the ambivalence already expressed. But you stole the sun from my heart. You stole the sun from my heart. So, although the term pop has strong connotations of good time trivia, pop songs are capable of very subtle kinds of seriousness. There are songs that work within the existing categories of thought, and songs that try to probe, unsettle, and readjust them. I'm defining seriousness then as the power within art to explore new ways of feeling, not just work within the existing ways. It's a kind of philosophical profundity. Obviously, the great classical composers thought music could be philosophically profound. Bach said that unless music was to the glory of God, it was just noise. Beethoven claimed that music is a higher revelation than all wisdom and philosophy. One of my favorite statements by famous composers is Tchaikovsky's, "Truly, there would be reason to go mad were it not for music." It's as if music suggests with amazing power the possibility of finding harmony in a world of discord. There's a scene in Shakespeare's Measure for Measure which indicates how subtle this harmonizing power of music can be. Mariana, the jilted lover of a hypocritical nobleman, is found sitting alone in a remote house with a moat all round it, a symbol of her isolation. She's shut herself away and is singing, "Take, oh take those lips away that so sweetly were forsworn, and those eyes the break of day, lights that do mislead the morn. But my kisses bring again, seals of love, but sealed in vain, sealed in vain." That would have been performed as a song in original productions of the play. This has a form that we've got used to in hundreds of songs, a quatrain rhyming A-B, followed by a couplet, which could be a hook, like Dylan's "It ain't dark yet, but it's getting there." She apologizes for singing such a song, saying, "My mirth it much displeased, but pleased my woe." It hints at how music, even while the lyrics may describe something sad, or wretched, or miserable, can soothe. You get the effect clearly in songs like R.E.M's Everybody Hurts, or in a more angular way in Radiohead's Fake Plastic Trees. Wordsworth wrote about this. He said that the regular pulse of metre in poetry, the sense that it's rhythmically organized, can counteract the effect of even the grimmest subject matter. You don't have to know this or believe it in order to feel that a sad song can be comforting, at least up to a point. I say this because there are situations where sad songs are truly unbearable. Bob Dylan, in 2022, published a book called The Philosophy of Modern Song. What it's about is nothing dry and academic, but the infinite variety of ways in which songs can enrich the way that we understand our own experience. He writes, for instance, about the extraordinary 1959 song Mac the Knife. When I first heard this song, I didn't hear all the words, and I didn't realize it was about a serial killer, a latter-day equivalent to Jack the Ripper. What Dylan focuses on is the fact that Bobby Darin, the singer who made the song famous, wanted to be like Frank Sinatra, but because of his background, felt like riffraff. So always had self-doubt gnawing away at him. Dylan hints that this allows Bobby Darin to put into the song the feeling of being a happy-go-lucky outsider with, nonetheless, murderous intentions. I doubt many people who bought the record thought of it that way, but once you consider the possibility, it's there. The song allows it. Dylan also writes about Dean Martin singing the 1964 Rodgers and Hart song, Blue Moon. He writes at length about Dino's reputation as a drunk with charm, who died broken and alone in a beaten-up diner with red leather seats. Twice Dylan zooms in on the line, I heard somebody whisper, please adore me, noting that at that point there's a little waver in Dino's voice. What makes the song serious, I suggest, is partly its capacity for exposing vulnerability in the singer. Some of the work done in any art is going to be transient and trivial. But in popular music, there's unmistakable evidence that songs can be profound, life-enriching, soul-sustaining. For these reasons, songwriting is not only worth doing, but it's vital to the health of any culture. I think I'll keep going. See you next time.